The future of Microsoft Flight Simulator has been revealed with a roadmap for 2023. There's a massive amount of content coming over the next year, so let's jump in and take a look. Let's start with the World Updates. There's going to be 4 next year, maybe 5. It will depend upon how these go. We don't know the names of each of them just yet, but we do know a Colombia World Update is coming, and the newest revealed one is a World Update for New Zealand. So overall, Microsoft are definitely slowing down the pace a little bit on the World Updates, but even still, 4 World Updates for a year is very good going indeed. Looking forward to seeing that. Incidentally, we can expect to see the New Zealand World Update around February or thereabouts. Now moving on, there's going to be some sim updates next year as well, as you can see here on the roadmap. We don't know how many there's going to be, so it seems Microsoft are being deliberately vague on this. So yeah, they didn't really go into specifics on sim updates, and as you can see there's only a single one on the roadmap. Very likely that some of these sim updates will tie in with the surprises as they did in 2022. Now another thing you'll notice that's on here, something new in fact, is the AAU. These are different types of updates. There's going to be 3. They are Aircraft and Avionics Updates. Now these are going to be especially interesting as they will contain things that I know a lot of people have been asking for ever since the Flight Sim updated. In fact, we've had a slight taster of this with the update of the Garmin G1000 in 2022. This was worked on and improved greatly by Working Title, who are working with both Asobo and Microsoft Flight Simulator on the sim. Now the AAU updates look as though they're going to be worked on by Working Title as well, and effectively they will overhaul many of the default planes that are already in the sim. In short, they will make them more detailed, more compelling, and perhaps more realistic as well. On screen you can see some of the things that are going to be worked on. This includes a complete overhaul of the GNS 430W, GNS 530W, which will get a similar overhaul in scope to what happened with the Garmin G1000. Once this work is complete, the new version of the GNS will become the default version, at least for most planes that it's available in. Additionally, the G3000, G5000 is also getting a similar overhaul as well. So that would be the avionics part of it, but of course the aircraft part is also getting updates. This includes the Cessna Citation CG4 as well as the Cessna Longitude. These are both getting overhauls. Again, you can see all the details on the screen right here. The TBM 930 is also going to get some work, although it seems this isn't going to be quite a large overhaul as we're seeing on the 2 previously mentioned Cessnas. So yeah, all of this is what the AAU, or the Avionics and Aircraft Updates, are about. The first one, including everything we've just mentioned, is coming in January. The rest are spaced out through 2023. Now moving on, next year is also going to contain 3 city updates. We've already had the first of these this year, but nice to see this is going to continue being a thing with the 3 additional ones next year. We can also expect to see some additional paid for planes coming from Microsoft. These are the usual local legends as well as the famous flyers, 1 of these for each month, so yet 6 of each, 12 in total, a nice bunch of additional planes right there. The final thing on the roadmap that's worth pointing out, which I touched on just earlier, is the surprises. There's 3 of these listed, the first in February and another coming in August, with the final one coming next year in November, so this time next year. Now this year there was a couple of surprises on the roadmap as well, the roadmap for 2022. Some of these turned out to be fairly minor, I guess, in terms of what they mean for the end user, although probably quite significant for Microsoft. For example, Flight Simulator, the cloud version. We also got a nice update with the free Halo Pelican, which was included in one of the more recent updates, around about August again actually this year. There was another surprise as well this year, I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, so sorry about that, but 3 more, like I say, for next year. So it's all looking good, plenty of new content to look forward to over that time. Okay, so in other news, Microsoft in their recent Q&A also discussed a few different things on the recent 40th anniversary update, a few outstanding issues that many people have noticed. We'll start with one of the big ones, which is Xbox. Numerous people I've seen, especially in the comment section to my previous video, but also elsewhere across the internet, have mentioned the graphics downgrade that occurred with the update on the consoles. This is somewhat of a graphics degradation, and it seemed to affect texture problems, being at lower resolution, lower quality than what they used to be. Asobo have been pretty quick to identify what this problem is, and it is a bug. It's not an intentional downgrade, it is something they're going to fix, and it's all down to the way that the console measures the performance on the sim, and it's to do with the frame time measurements. When the frame time measurements are of a poor rate, when they're not where they should be, the game automatically downgrades itself to try and increase the frame time, to try and keep things running nice and smooth. Now, unfortunately, with the 40th anniversary edition, a bug was introduced that caused the sim to incorrectly measure the frame time, and this caused the console to downgrade the graphics when it shouldn't have done. So this is definitely something they're going to fix. Unfortunately, it's not a fix that's going to happen super quick, but they are expecting to hopefully get an update out to correct this in January. Now, another question come up was in regards to helicopters. These, of course, are very different to fly to aeroplanes, and the question has been asked whether or not at some point in the future Microsoft will include tutorials for the helicopters. Now, Asobo seem to be a little bit reluctant about the subject, and they feel that the flight assists that are in already seem to be enough, and they would really help with things. But head of Microsoft Flight Simulator, Jörg Newman, said that had a slightly different take, saying that there will be tutorials, but it's just really a matter of time. So maybe something that will be added in the future, maybe the far future. We'll have to see on that count. Another subject was to do with weather. As we're moving into winter in the Northern Hemisphere, the subject of snow came up. This is an issue where snow, it can be on the surfaces, on the mountains, on the hills, on the countryside and whatnot, but it also unfortunately appears to cover runways, roads and taxiways. This is a problem that was introduced in Sim Update 9. It broke snow on the runways, on the roads. It is an easy fix, but hasn't been fixed just yet. So a fix for the future, and one that unfortunately may well miss the winter for the Northern Hemisphere for this particular year. But we'll have to see it when that turns up. But judging from the roadmap here, it's not really looking for a space where they might get that fix in any earlier time. And finally, one other thing I wanted to touch on was the clouds, turbulence and drafts. These have been dramatically changed over the past few updates, largely to account for the introduction of helicopters and more specifically gliders. But some people have been wondering about the turbulence. Obviously it does now affect planes in a much different way to it used to, due to increased realism. But some people don't really like it, and they're wondering if there's ways to change the turbulence or actually turn it off. Unfortunately, there's not a way to turn it off right now in the sim. Although you can kind of do it, you just have to turn winds off. And as soon as winds are switched down to 0, that will also turn turbulence off. There's not a separate turbulence setting. But Asobo did go on to say that this will be something for the future. There will be a separate UI that will allow for full customization of turbulence. And I think this is something that a lot of people will definitely appreciate. So that covers most of the information that Microsoft spoke about regarding the 40th anniversary edition. We've also covered all the news for 2023, and it's really nice to see that the sim does have a really bright future going into the next year. Now, the recent Q&A was a very long one, 3.5 hours in fact, and there was a lot of different information to cover. So I'll be back with an additional video to go into the other content very soon. Do keep an eye out for that. Meanwhile, do let me know your thoughts and feelings about all the future content we can expect to see in 2023. Is this the type of stuff you was expecting to see? Is there other stuff you'd prefer to see? Do let me know. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.